My fellow Americans, it has been compared to Watergate, or even worse, which produced a total of 3 articles of impeachment, a total of 8 less than the first presidential impeachment against Democrat President Andrew Johnson, allegations of bribery, even treason, extortion, and even violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, but only a vague reference regarding violations of multiple federal crimes detailed in a 196-page report for 2 articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump. True, bribery requires an American public official to receive a thing of value in a quid pro quo exchange for performance of an official act. True, treason requires a declared enemy of the United States. True, extortion would have required President Trump to threaten kidnapping, grave bodily harm, or the life of President Zelensky. True, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act contains a specific exemption for government activity. But who has the time to really read all of that? And the House Democrats have made it more convenient, just like voting, for the Senate when it takes up the matter in the new year. With only 2 things about which to vote: abuse of power, which is not codified as a crime, and obstruction of Congress because the president utilized legal means to attempt to defend himself, just like the framers intended. But since this impeachment has been compared to Watergate, or far worse, let's attempt to comprehend the analogy. And let me make this perfectly clear. I am not a crook. Frank Wills was a 24-year-old security guard on the midnight to 7 a.m. shift on Saturday, June 17, 1972. Just reporting to work around midnight when he noticed that something was wrong immediately. He was not a CIA employee or professional investigator, getting his hands on a transcript of a presidential phone call somehow, but just a guy who showed up for work in a comedy of errors. And rather than chilling out, smoking a cigarette, or getting some coffee to stay up all night, Frank decided to call that dog checkers. Frank arrived prepared to go into action, and by 12:30, after noticing the doors stuffed with paper on 2 separate floors, he reportedly turned off all of the lights. Now, perhaps this is a standard operating procedure in investigative practices because darkness tends to stop bad people from doing bad stuff, we all know. It is probably in the security guard manual and security guard course, because then he proceeded in the dark, to investigate, apparently camouflaged by the darkness with a huge flashlight. But by 4:47 p.m., Tim O'Brien, an anxious reporter from the Washington Post, had arrived at the crime scene as part of a team of a total of 9 reporters, including the famed Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward ace reporters, were featured in the movie and played by Robert Redford and that other tiny fellow, and actually broke a window to get into the building. But a crime scene for a third-rate burglary that only summoned a total of 2 D.C. police officers to the scene. Let me make this perfectly clear. It was not until the following day that ace reporters Woodward and Bernstein would link James McCord to the Nixon re-election committee in the press when identifying the 5 burglars to the world, while the FBI was looking at their copious notes and working anxiously to identify Howard Hunt, a former CIA officer, to the burglary, later convicting him to 33 months in federal prison. So it can definitely be said that the current impeachment and Watergate all had CIA involvement. But the larger question is, with a team of 9 reporters responding to a third-rate burglary within hours, even breaking a window to get in, how much did the press know? And when did they know? It was not until May 17, 1973, that U.S. Senator Sam Ervin, a North Carolina Democrat, yes, a North Carolina Democrat on the Senate Select Committee on Presidential Campaign Activity, yes, the Senate Watergate Committee, almost a year after the third-rate burglary to which 2 police officers and 9 Washington Post reporters, including ace investigators Woodward and Bernstein, arrived, even breaking a window to get in, began an inquiry into the incident. And it was not until August 8, 1974, a day that will live in infamy, that Tricky Dick, with 3 articles of impeachment, would resign from the office of the presidency, effective after his speech. An ordeal that took over 2 years. Yes, 2 years. Yet on July 25th, a transcript of a phone call that got into the hands of the CIA, prohibited by an executive order 1233, signed by President William Jefferson Clinton in 1998, from engaging in collection on American citizens. One of many reforms brought by the Watergate scandal that prompted the election of President James Earl Carter, during whose presidency we had malaise and 444 days of hostages, and a wave of reforms, including the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, culminated in an impeachment inquiry on September 24th, 2019, and articles of impeachment on December 10th, 2019. And we are told that this was exactly like Watergate or worse. Let me make this perfectly clear. Let's make a resolution for 2020. Let's make America great again. Honest. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb. Bad Boys for Life. Honest. Honest.